I'm a real wild one, wild one, wild one. Well, I'm just out of school, like I'm real, real cool. Gotta dance like a fool, that I got a message, be a wild one. Oh yeah, I'm a wild one. Gonna break it loose, keep on moving wild. Gonna keep on swinging, baby, I'm a real wild child. Gonna meet all my friends, gonna have ourselves a ball. Gonna tell my friends, gonna tell them all that I'm a wild one. Oh yeah, I'm a wild one. Gonna break it loose, keep on moving wild. Gonna keep on swinging, baby, I'm a real wild child. I'm a real wild one, and I like a wild fun. In a world gone crazy, everything seems hazy. I'm a wild one. Oh yeah, I'm a wild one. Gonna break it loose, keep on moving wild. Gonna keep on swinging, baby, I'm a real wild child. I'm a wild one. Oh yeah, I'm a wild one. I'm a wild one. Oh baby, I'm a wild one. Gonna break it loose, keep on moving wild. Keep on swinging, baby, I'm a real wild child.
Thank you, son. Good morning. I am so excited to be here this morning. I have been looking forward to this sermon since last year. My name is Mel Fritchie, and I am joyfully serving as the president of the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg for 12 hours and 55 more minutes. I hope that my friend Marion is watching and sees me finishing out my term. Some naysayers let me know that I was not finished after the annual meeting. I would like to thank you again so much for the opportunity to serve this beloved community that I love so much. And I am so pleased with the work that we did together this year, listening to one another. So thank you. I am delighted to welcome all of you who are here this morning and everyone who is joining us virtually. This is a welcoming congregation where everyone is welcome just as we each are. If you are visiting with us this morning, we would love to meet you and share more about the life of this congregation. Visitor cards may be found in the pocket on the back of the chair in front of you. Please feel welcome to fill one out and place it in the offering plate during the service so that we can connect with you. There are many important announcements on the sheets titled Connect at the back of your bulletin this morning. We love to connect with one another. Please open your bulletin and see all that you can be a part of. Here are just a few highlights. Don't forget that there is, over the summer, an ongoing adult enrichment class every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. in the fellowship hall. The current class is part of the Great Courses curriculum and is called Emerson, Thoreau, and the Transcendentalist Movement. These classes are facilitated by the adult enrichment team, but invite others who might be interested in facilitating to reach out to Jim Scanlon. There he is, at AE, that's Adult Enrichment, AE@uucs.org. Please come as your busy schedule permits. The announcement for our new music director position was included in Thursday's happenings and will be in tomorrow's Unison. If you know people who might be interested in this quarter-time position, which will lead a thriving ministry of music in partnership with this vibrant, engaged congregation, please feel free to share the job posting with them. They will serve on a collaborative team of staff and volunteers, designing music and worship for all generations of our congregation. May we all, in all parts of our life, strive to create a world of mutual thriving for every one of us. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning. I'll add my welcome. I am Robin Carter, and I will be your worship associate this morning. It is great to be here with you all. First, let's acknowledge a little bit of nostalgia already shared this morning. Sydney and Ron, thank you very much. When Anna, our guest speaker, first suggested sort of a litany of music choices to pick from that were all from movie soundtracks starring our topic, Wallace Shawn for the day, I immediately responded, all caps, Iggy Pop, yes. So thank you guys for starting us off with such a great, fun opener. Fun fact, that was from the movie Clueless, which is 30 years old next year. I was in college. I believe Anna, our guest speaker, was in first grade when it first came out. But we are going to continue this month's theme of Technicolor Justice. Anne, our assistant minister, has done a fabulous job of leading us through The Pursuit of Happiness, Barbie, Wonder Woman, and Wonka to explore how movies can boost your mood, help you relax and reduce stress, but also move you to reflect on social and cultural themes. I'm delighted to say that we have Anna Abhow-Elliott as our guest speaker this morning, where she's going to continue on that journey by exploring the works of Wallace Shawn. If his name and image doesn't conjure up any immediate connection to any particular film for you, there's a brief resume of some of his most iconic film and TV shows on the front cover of your order of service. Toy Story, Clueless, Princess Bride, The Incredibles, Young Sheldon, for those of you who still have cable, Gossip Girl, and My Dinner with Andre. He's considered to be one of the most recognizable voices in Hollywood and a fierce advocate for human rights. So it's understandable that Anna has dedicated a significant amount of time to studying him and his causes. While Wallace might be the focus of the meditation this morning, allow me to tell you a little bit more about our guest speaker, as she is just as intriguing as our topic. Anna is an actor, a writer, a thinker, and a connection maker. Born in Philadelphia to parents who encouraged her creativity, she attended Quaker schools and went on to study drama at New York University, where she earned a BFA in 2011. She moved to Spartanburg in 2015 when she was selected as an artist in residence with Hubbub. She is the recipient of more artist in residency and artist grants than I can count. It was here in Spartanburg where I met her when what was then the West Main Artists Cooperative, now the Artists Collective, and I just flat out fell in love with her. Between the years of 2015 and 2020, you likely ran into her somewhere downtown. She was involved in everything from Scrappy Shakespeare to Hub City Improv to the Barter Boat. Do y'all remember that, the Barter Boat? You could trade her a pen and she would give you a shirt. I don't know, it was the coolest thing. And speaking down barriers. It was here in Spartanburg that she has said she got to take genuine risks and do real experiments in her work, and many of us were witnesses to that creativity. Anna went on to earn her MFA in studio art at the University of North Carolina in Greensboro just last year. Her thesis led her to asking bigger questions such as, what is my role in history and what stories do I pass on and how? And if that wasn't enough, last year she started her PhD in American Studies at UNC Chapel Hill, where she has adopted a black cat named Betty to help her finish by ensuring she gets up every morning to do her work, although Betty is no help as an editor yet. If you haven't caught on, Anna is a nerd. My people. Having been selected as a Fulbright semifinalist and a member of the Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society, I have described in the past Anna as a ball of intelligence wrapped in fun. I have known her for years and look forward to learning more about how Anna thinks about and processes the world around her in every conversation. We welcome Anna, we welcome her joy and her insight, and we listen again on the call of our lives to make this world we share more livable for every one of us. And now for the lighting of our chalice. Our opening reading comes from The Princess Bride, a 1987 film that is considered to be a cult classic. This predated your birth, correct? Yes, okay. In case you are not familiar with this movie, a synopsis is printed in your order of service. The Princess Bride is a fairy tale adventure about a beautiful young woman and her one true love. He must find her after a long separation and save her. They must battle the evils of the mythical kingdom and be reunited with each other. Vizzini, played by Wallace Shawn, was a kidnapper who took Buttercup, the princess, against her will, with the intention of starting a war. Working with Fezzik and Inigo Montoya, who had been hesitant about the plot, Vizzini attempted to keep the princess from being rescued by the dread pirate Roberts. The scene is where Vizzini had just cut the rope and the dread pirate Roberts, my goodness, is climbing up. Vizzini says, "He didn't fall? Inconceivable." Inigo Montoya responds, "You keep using that word. I do not think you know what it means." And now we will sing hymn 323, Gray Hymnal, hymn 323.
Break not the
Let us now gather at the Rippling Bowl to share joys and concerns, as is our custom here at UUCS, remembering what the bowl represents and that a stone or shell released into the water creates a ripple. And depending upon what you're releasing, the joys can be multiplied and sorrows lessened. This is a time-honored tradition where we are encouraged to release whatever we're holding, and let's be honest, sometimes it's both at the same time, joy and sorrow all in one. For those of you joining us virtually, it is my honor to release 2 stones on your behalf, one for your joys and one for your sorrows. Each week, we join in speaking the words of our congregational covenant. Covenants define obligations and commitments, but they're different from contracts because they are relational and personal. These words are a promise that we collectively make to each other each week to capture who we are, what we value, and how we strive to live together in this world. The words of the covenant are printed in today's order of service, and I invite you to please join me now in speaking these living words together. With courage we say, we are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. This is a beloved community, and a community is made up of all sorts of people. Some of us love a good bear hug, and sometimes the hug comes with a tackle if you've ever met Mel. And others prefer a no-contact greeting, and all of that is welcomed here. If you wish to remain seated during this time or prefer a simple wave from your seat, that is fine. We greet each other to remind ourselves that we are linked together in our beloved community and to honor the life that we share. Let us do so with intention and respect for one another's personal preferences. Let's greet. guys are funny. I love you all. Oh my goodness. Watching everyone's response to the music, it's hilarious. Some of you jet immediately back, and others are like, let me make my final point. It's hilarious. As the ushers come forward, I invite you to share your financial gifts this morning. Please continue to support the budget of the church so that we can fund the causes we cherish, do the work we value, and work alongside various organizations in our community. Our June Share the Plate will benefit Voting Justice, which is our in-house arm of social justice. We're working to get out the vote to support the issues that we care about: democracy and freedom. Freedom for access to health care, freedom to vote, freedom from the fear of gun violence, and more. Please contribute to help us pay for over 4,000 postcards, stamps, door hangers, and more. Half of all undesignated gifts and all designated giving in the plate will go towards this cause. Thank you for your continued generosity.
You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pal said. Said you've got a friend in me. Well, you've got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got troubles, then I got them too. There isn't anything that I wouldn't do for you. If we stick together, we can see it through. 'Cause you've got a friend in me. Yeah, you've got a friend in me. Some of the folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too, maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. Just me and you. And as the years go by, our friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's our destiny. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me.
The Toy Story franchise, right? That song was part of the soundtrack in every single movie so far. Yeah. And they're on 4. Yeah. Join me for a brief time of silence as we prepare our hearts and minds for this incredible journey we're about to take together through Anna's message this morning.
Hi, everyone. So many lovely people to see. Thank you for that introduction. Very fancy. Whew. Yeah, and it's good to be back again. When I was here before, I talked to you about Keanu Charles Reeves, but today I'm going to talk to you about one of his many co-stars, Wallace Shawn, They were in Toy Story 4 together. You may remember Keanu was Duke Kaboom, Canada's greatest stuntman. You may remember Wallace Shawn as Rex, the nervous plastic dinosaur, or you may remember him as cranky Mr. Hall in Clueless, which again, from first grade, that movie was a big deal for me. Or yeah, young Sheldon, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, shout out. Sex and the City, and as we discussed, The Princess Bride. Maybe your family also likes to exclaim "Inconceivable" a lot. But today I'd like to spend some time with the inconceivable. It might seem inconceivable to some of you to find out that Wallace Shawn is not only a character actor. Did you know he went to Harvard and Oxford to study history? Did you know that his father was the longtime editor of the New Yorker magazine, William Shawn? Did you know that Wallace Shawn has written off-Broadway plays and made experimental films about Chekhov? Did you know he wrote a 2-hour movie where two men just get dinner and talk about the philosophy of art and life? It's called My Dinner with Andre, and it makes me laugh and cry. Did you know that Wallace Shawn is an outspoken leftist who is on the advisory board of the organization Jewish Voice for Peace, the largest progressive Jewish anti-Zionist organization in the world? Perhaps some of you did know this, but to me, seeing the length, breadth, and depth of his work was a revelation about my own relationship to myself. Why did I find it inconceivable that Shawn's artistic world could expand beyond my childhood? Where Keanu Reeves is a quiet leading man, Shawn is willing to speak volumes as a voice actor and as an intellectual artist and public figure. I don't agree with all of it, but that's because he's been publishing work for decades. I remember years ago reading an essay by Shawn, and I felt not only seen and supported, but challenged. In his distinctive, odd sort of storybook prose, Shawn describes experiences of our insulated American life without shame or avoidance, but with an honesty that I find both hard to swallow and essential to take in. It helps me to conceive of what I couldn't before. So I'd like to present you with a lightly abridged version of Wallace Shawn's essay from 2009, Why I Call Myself a Socialist. Why I Call Myself a Socialist. In most reasonably large towns in the United States and Europe, you can find, on some important public square or street, a professional theater. And so, in various quiet neighborhoods in these towns, you can usually also find some rather quiet individuals, the actors who regularly work at that theater, individuals whose daily lives center around lawns and cars and cooking and shopping and occasionally the athletic events of children, but who surprisingly, at night, put on the robes of kings and wizards, witches and queens, and for their particular community, temporarily embody the darkest needs and loftiest hopes of the human species. The actor's role in the community is quite unlike anyone else's. Businessmen, for example, don't take off their clothes or cry in front of strangers in the course of their work. Actors do. Contrary to the popular misconception, the actor is not necessarily a specialist in imitating or portraying what he knows about other people. On the contrary, the actor may simply be a person who's more willing than others to reveal some truths about himself. Interestingly, the actress who, in her own persona, may be gentle, shy, and socially awkward, someone whose hand trembles when pouring a cup of tea for a visiting friend, can convincingly portray an elegant, cruel aristocrat tossing off malicious epigrams in an 18th century chocolate house. On stage, her hand doesn't shake when she pours the cup of chocolate, nor does she hesitate when passing along the vilest gossip about her closest friends. The actress's next-door neighbors, who may not have had the chance to see her perform, might say that the person they know could never have been, under any circumstances, either elegant or cruel. But she knows the truth, that in fact, she could have been either or both. And when she plays her part, she's simply showing the audience what she might have been if she'd in fact been an aristocrat in a chocolate house in the 18th century. We are not what we seem. We are more than what we seem. The actor knows that. And because the actor knows that hidden inside himself there's a wizard and a king, he also knows that when he's playing himself in his daily life, he's playing a part. He's performing, just as he's performing when he plays a part on stage. He knows that when he's on stage performing, he's in a sense deceiving his friends in the audience less than he does in daily life, not more. Because on stage, he's disclosing the parts of himself that in daily life he struggles to hide. He knows, in fact, that the role of himself is actually a rather small part, and that when he plays that part, he must make an enormous effort to conceal the whole universe of possibilities that exists inside him. Actors are treated as uncanny beings by non-actors because of the strange voyage into themselves that actors habitually make, traveling outside the small territory of traits that are seen by their daily acquaintances as them. Actors, in contrast, look at non-actors with a certain bewilderment and secretly think, what an odd life those people lead. Doesn't it get a bit claustrophobic? It's commonly noted that we all come into the world naked. At the beginning of each day, most of us find ourselves naked once again, in that strange suspended moment before we put on our clothes. In various religions, priests put on their clothes quite solemnly, according to a ritual. Policemen, soldiers, janitors, and hotel maids get up in the morning, get dressed, go to work, go to their locker rooms, remove their clothes, and get dressed again in their respective uniforms. The actor goes to the theater, goes to his dressing room, and puts on his costume. And as he does so, he remembers the character he's going to play, how the character feels, how the character speaks. The actor in costume looks in the mirror, and it all comes back to him. When the actor steps onto the stage to begin the play, he wants to convince the audience that what they're seeing is not a play, but reality itself. The costume that the actor wears, and the voice, the diction, the accent, the way of speaking that begin to return to the actor when he puts on the costume are devices designed to set in motion a capacity possessed by every member of the audience, a special human capacity whose existence as part of our genetic makeup is what makes theater possible. That is, our capacity to believe what we want and need to believe about any person who is not ourself. Because let's be frank, other people are not me, and people who are not me will always in a way be alien to me. They will always in a way be strangers to me, and I will never know with any certainty what they're like. So yes, it's possible to believe a fantasy about them. One thing I feel I know is that I'm amazingly responsive to visual cues about other people, and I'm prepared to guess that this is characteristic of our entire species. And this is why people who can afford it spend enormous sums of money on haircuts and clothes. And this is why films which deal in close-ups put an enormous amount of attention on makeup and hair. And this is why actors in plays take their costumes very, very seriously. It's all because people really do believe what visual cues say. A haircut dramatically changes how we see a person. A haircut can say, I'm intelligent, disciplined, precise, and dynamic. A different haircut can say, I'm not very bright. I'm sort of a slob. I don't care what happens to me. I don't care what you think of me. Clothes tell us about a person's role in society. But there's an extraordinary similarity in the speed with which we respond to the cues from haircuts and from clothes, and in the strength of our belief that what they're telling us is true. So when the actor comes on stage in the costume of a king, I'm prepared to believe he is a king. The actor on stage is living in reality. He knows that there is indeed a king inside him. But he also knows very well that fate has made him an actor and not actually a king. The audience member looking at the actor on stage steps out of reality and lives in illusion until the curtain comes down. Our capacity to fantasize about other people and to believe our own fantasies makes it possible for us to enjoy this valuable art form, theater. But unfortunately, it's a capacity which has brought incalculable harm and suffering to human beings. It's well known what grief and even danger can result when we make use of this capacity in our romantic lives and eagerly ascribe to a potential partner benevolent characteristics which are based on our hopes and not on truth. One can hardly begin to describe the anguish caused by our habit of using our fantasizing capacity in the opposite direction. That is, using it to ascribe negative characteristics to people who, for one reason or another, we'd like to think less of. Sometimes we do this in regard to large groups of people, none of whom we've met. But we can even apply our remarkable capacity in relation to individuals or groups whom we know rather well, sometimes simply to make ourselves feel better about things that we happen to have done to them or are planning to do. You couldn't exactly say, for example, that Thomas Jefferson had no familiarity with dark-skinned people. His problem was that he couldn't figure out how to live the life he was, in fact, living, unless he owned these people as slaves. And as it would have been unbearable to him to see himself as so heartless, unjust, and cruel as to keep in bondage people who were just like himself, he ignored the evidence that was in front of his eyes and clung to the fantasy that people from Africa were not his equals. Well, one could write an entire political history of the human race by simply recounting the exhausting cycle of fantasies which different groups have believed at different times about different other groups. Of course, these fantasies were absurd in every case. After a while, one does grasp the pattern. Africans, Jews, Mexicans, same-sex lovers, women. After a certain period of time, somebody says, well, actually, they're not that different from anybody else. They have the same capacities. I don't like all of them. Some of them are geniuses, etc., etc. The revelations are always in the same direction. We learn about one group or another, the thing that actors quickly learn in relation to themselves when they become actors. People are more than they seem to be. We're all rather good at seeing through last year's fantasies and moving on, and rather proud of it, too. It's this year's fantasies that present a difficulty. Are we more brilliant than Thomas Jefferson? Probably not. So there's our situation. It's delightfully easy to see through illusions held by people far away, or by members of one's own group a century ago, or a decade ago, or a year ago. But this doesn't seem to help us see through the illusions which, at any given moment, happen to be shared by the people who surround us, our friends, our family, the people we trust. Around 400,000 babies are born on Earth each day. Some are born irreparably damaged, casualties of the conditions in which their mothers lived: malnutrition, polluted water, mysterious chemicals that sneak into the body and warp the genes. But the much more tragic and more horrible truth is that most of these babies are born healthy. There's nothing wrong with them. Every one of them is ready to develop into a person whose intelligence, insight, aesthetic taste, and love of other people could help to make the world a better place. Every one of them is ready to become a person who wakes up happily in the morning because they know they're going to spend the day doing work they find fascinating, work that they love. They're born with all the genetic gifts they could possibly need, wiggling beside their mothers. They have no idea what's going to be done to them. In the old days of the Soviet 5-year plans, the planners tried to determine what ought to happen to the babies born under their jurisdiction. They would calculate how many managers the economy needed, how many researchers, how many factory workers. And the Soviet leaders would organize society in an attempt to channel the right number of people into each category. In most of the world today, the invisible hand of the global market performs this function. The global market selects out a tiny group of privileged babies who are born in certain parts of certain towns in certain countries. And these babies are allowed to lead privileged lives. Some will be scientists, some will be bankers, some will command, rule, and grow fantastically rich. And others will become more modestly paid intellectuals, or teachers, or artists. But all the members of this tiny group will have the chance to develop their minds and realize their talents. As for all the other babies, the market sorts them and stamps labels onto them and hurls them violently into various pits, where an appropriate upbringing and preparation are waiting for them. If the market thinks that workers will be needed in electronics factories, 100,000 babies will be stamped with the label factory worker and thrown down into a certain particular pit. And when the moment comes when one of the babies is fully prepared and old enough to work, she'll crawl out of the pit and she'll find herself standing at the gate of a factory in India or in China or in Mexico. And she'll stand at her workstation for 16 hours a day. She'll sleep in the factory's dormitory. She won't be allowed to speak to her fellow workers. She'll have to ask for permission to go to the bathroom. She'll be subjected to the whims of her boss, and she'll be breathing fumes day and night that will make her ill and lead to her death at an early age. And when she has died, one will be able to say about her that she worked like a nurse, not to benefit herself, but to benefit others. Except that a nurse works to benefit the sick, while the factory worker will have worked to benefit the owners of her factory. She will have devoted her hours, her consideration, her energy and strength to increasing their wealth. She will have lived and died for that. And it's not that anyone sadly concluded that when she was born, that she lacked the talent to become, let's say, a violinist, a conductor, perhaps another Beethoven. The reason she was sent to the factory and not to the concert hall was not that she lacked ability, but that the market wanted workers, and so she was assigned to be one. And during the period when all the babies who are born have been sorted into their different categories and labeled, during the period when you could say that they're being nourished in their pens till they're ready to go to work, they're all assigned appropriate costumes. And once they know what costume they'll wear, each individual is given an accent, a way of speaking, some characteristic personality traits, and a matching body type, and each person's face starts slowly to specialize in certain expressions which coordinate well with their personality, body type, and costume. And so each person comes to understand what role he will play. And so each can consistently select and reproduce through all the decades and changes of fashion the appropriate style and wardrobe for the rest of his life. Even those of us who were selected out from the general group and have our even those of us who were selected out from the general group have our role and our costume. I happen to play a semi-prosperous, fortunate bohemian, not doing too badly, nor too magnificently. And as I walk out onto the street on a sunny day, dressed in my fortunate bohemian costume, I pass, for example, the burly cop on the beat. I pass the weedy professor in his rumpled jacket, distractedly ruminating as he shambles along. I see couples in elegant suits, briskly rushing to their meetings. I see the art student and the law student, and in the background, sometimes looming up as they come a bit closer, those not particularly selected out. The drugstore cashier in her oddly matched pink shirt and green slacks, the wacky street hustler with his crazy dialect and his crazy gestures, the wisecracking truck drivers with their round bellies and leering grins, the grim-faced domestic worker who slipped out from her employer's house and now races into a shop to do an errand. And I see nothing. I think nothing. I have no reaction to what I'm seeing because I believe it all. I simply believe it. I believe the costumes. I believe the characters. And then for one instant, as the woman runs into the shop, I suddenly see what's happening, the way a drowning man might have one last vivid glimpse of the glittering shore. And I feel like screaming out, "Stop, stop, this isn't real. It's all a fantasy. It's all a play. The people in these costumes are not what you think. The accents are fake. The expressions are fake. Don't you see? It's all one instant, and then it's gone. My mind goes blank for a moment, and then I'm back to where I was. The domestic worker runs out of the shop and hurries back toward her job. And once again, I see her only as the character she plays. I see a person who works as a servant. And surely that person could never have lived, for example, the life I've lived, or been like me. She's not intelligent enough. She had to be a servant. She was born that way. The hustler surely had to be a hustler. It's all he could do. The cashier could never have worn beautiful clothes. She could never have been someone who sought out what was beautiful. She could only ever have worn that pink shirt and those green slacks. So just as Thomas Jefferson lived in illusion because he couldn't face the truth about the slaves that he owned, I too put to use every second of my life, like my beating heart, this capacity to fantasize, which we've all been granted as our dubious birthright. My belief in the performance unfolding before me allows me not to remember those dreadful moments when all of those babies were permanently maimed and I was spared. The world hurled the infant who became the domestic worker to the bottom of a pit and crippled her for life, and I saw it happen, but I can't remember it now. And so it seems quite wonderful to me that the world today treats the domestic worker and me with scrupulous equality. It seems wonderfully right. We compete on an equal basis for the things we want. If I apply for a job, I take the test. And if she applies for the job, she takes the test. And I go through my life thinking it's all quite fair. If we look at reality for more than an instant, if we look at the human beings passing us on the street, it's not bearable. It's not bearable to watch while the talents and the abilities of infants and children are crushed and destroyed. These happen to be things that I just can't think about. And most of the time, the factory workers and the domestic workers and cashiers and truck drivers can't think about them either. Their performances as these characters are consistent and convincing because they actually believe about themselves just what I believe about them. That what they are now is all they could ever have been. They could never have been anything other than what they are. Of course, that's what we all have to believe so that we can bear our lives and live in peace together. But it's the peace of death. Actors understand the infinite vastness hiding inside each human being, the characters not played, the characteristics not revealed. School teachers can see every day that, given the chance, the sullen pupil in the back row can sing, dance, juggle, do mathematics, paint, and think. If the play we're watching is an illusion, if the baby who now wears the costume of the hustler in fact had the capacity to become a biologist or a doctor, a circus performer, or a poet or a scholar of ancient Greek, then the division of labor, as now practiced, is inherently immoral, and we must somehow learn a different way to share out all the work that needs to be done. The costumes are wrong. They have to be discarded. We have to start out naked again and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. If you guys would please stand and join me in singing number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. All creatures of the earth and sky, come kindred, lift your voices high. Hallelujah, hallelujah, bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Swift rushing wind so wild and strong, white clouds that sail in heaven along. Hallelujah, hallelujah, fair rising morn with praise rejoice. High stars of evening find a voice. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Cool flowing water, pure and clear, make music for all life to hear. Hallelujah, hallelujah, dance flame of fire so strong and bright, and bless us with your warmth and light. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Embracing earth you day by day, bring forth your blessings on our way. Hallelujah, hallelujah, all herbs and fruits that richly
Okay, so how many of you are going to go home and restudy that essay? Wow, wow. So Wallace Shawn, Why I Call Myself a Socialist, is that the right name, Anna? Why I Call Myself, I told Anna, I said I was going to read it prior to today, and I never got around to it. And I was so glad that I hadn't, because to hear her read it and embody it was just amazing. Thank you. Our closing words come from the impeccably crafted, independent 1981 film, My Dinner with Andre. If you haven't seen it, synopsis in your order of service. Old friends Wallace and Andre haven't seen each other in 5 years and agree to meet for dinner. Andre, a once well-known theater director, dropped out of the New York scene to travel the world, while Wallace stuck around, finding only mixed success as a playwright. As they sit down to eat, Andre launches into a series of fantastic stories from his time away, and Wallace can't help but notice how different their worldviews have become. Wallace says, "Suppose you're going through some kind of hell in your own life. Well, you would just love to know if friends have experienced similar things, but we just don't dare to ask each other." Andre responds, "No, it would be like asking your friend to drop his role." I offer you a benediction today, written for the 1947 Western novel Blood Brother, and later in the film adaptation of the novel Broken Arrow. This poem: "May the sun bring you new energy by day. May the moon softly restore you by night. May the rains wash away your worries, and may the breeze blow new strength into your being. All of the days of your life, may you walk gently through the world and know its beauty."
We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength